Hi, everybody. Welcome to an exciting race on Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide, hosted here on SpeedGaming. My name is Gar. I am going to be one of your lovely commentators for the evening. I'm joined in the booth today by Tyrith, a phenomenal player in his own right. Tyrith, how are you?
This evening, and I'm really looking forward to this race here. And I believe we're now in week 5 of Ultros League Season 2. We've got an Elixir A matchup here between the Schwantz and Jackamus.
Yes, indeed. The Schwantz 27 and Jackamus, both of these guys are also fantastic racers, as evidenced by their placement in the Elixir tier. Should be a great race. So, goals for this evening, Tyrith. What are our racers looking to do during this seed?
So we have a standard race seed here in Ultros League. And so in order to unlock the final dungeon, they need to recruit 6 characters and find 9 espers. They will start with 3 characters, and then they will need to find more characters and their espers as they go.
That sounds like a lovely plan to me. You might notice that there is a unlock KT skip option. That's if you get 3 more characters or 3 more espers over that 6-9 limit, you will get to skip directly through the statues, right on top of some switches. That'll give you a nice boost through Kefka's Tower, which can be very dangerous. And you also you learn 8 sword techs by doing the Doma Dream scenario. So if they get Cyan, and if they have a sword tech user, that's going to be a very tremendous benefit to them. On that note, I think we are ready up. So the countdown has begun. They should be starting here momentarily.
The anticipation is always the hardest part.
Any second now.
And as always with Worlds Collide and these race seeds, this is going to be some of the most important part of the race is their ability to analyze who they got right here. So we're starting with Gogo, Umaro, and Shadow. This is
That's
probably
rough.
not the opening they were hoping for.
Yeah, that is that is very rough. Umaro tends to mess with the ability for Gogo to mimic items. We see that Jackham is there heading over to Gal's dad's house. That's one of Shadow's checks and picking up a Golem Esper.
Golem is a good find for the end boss. Hopefully he gets some good magic there to kind of help him get going here. With Worlds Collide, it's always about how can I kill the first boss, getting enough power to get some levels and get through the first boss or two. And generally the mid game is pretty easy after that point. It's all about getting started.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of getting started, the Schwantz 27 finding a Thunder Shield in the trainer house. That's a pretty phenomenal pickup. It's going to teach Bolt 2 at a rate of ×5. Very useful for clearing out some early and mid-game encounters.
Jackamus is taking the interesting route. I don't know if he found a warp at Shadow or Gao's dad's house because he went straight into the Zone Eater belly.
Yeah, I don't think he did. And Schwantz pulling an EXP egg out of the Narsh house. EXP egg is maybe the best item in the game. It's going to double the EXP that a character gets. And in this game, levels are everything. The higher level you are, the more damage you're ultimately going to do. So finding that egg early is a phenomenal pickup.
That's going to be a pretty big deal here. If Jackamus doesn't go to Narsh and get the egg himself before he really gets going, that could put him pretty far behind.
Ooh, and unfortunately, Jackham is taking a second dive off the bridge here. These Chancellors can be pretty rude. So, but you know what they say, third time's the charm.
Schwantz is going to go here and check on this spot in the side of the cave here on the right. And that lets you know whether or not there is a character behind Umaro's check in the World of Ruin. And so we saw there is not a character there. It just kind of helps them plan a little bit.
That's right. So because it's blank, there will either be an item or an Esper. And if you touch the little statue in Umaro's cave, it'll tell you specifically what it is.
Schwant's now going to loot the returner's hideout and just get some more items here. With the experience egg, he really just wants to be able to find enough stuff to get the ball rolling here. And once he gets going, he shouldn't really have any problems clearing out any bosses prior to Kefka's Tower. He's going to rapidly be able to overpower them if he finds any offense.
Absolutely. I think he picked up a rod of some flavor as Jackamus finds the king himself, Edgar, hiding out in Gogo's cave.
What's nice about Edgar here is that he gets half off of all item purchases in both Figaro Castle, but more importantly, everywhere in the World of Ruin in South Figaro. So hopefully he can find something powerful and expensive there to help boost him up.
You're going to be looking for nice relics, earrings, atlas armlets, maybe even the fancier stuff. Maybe there will be offerings for sale, or elemental shields, which you can break to cast max damage level 3 versions of their respective spells.
And then also Illumina and Ragnarok are the two big weapons that you're hoping to find.
So Edgar represents a lot of possibility, and not to mention just cheap items that you're going to buy anyway. Your Phoenix Downs, your potions. Ooh, and there's another ice shield. So elemental protection coming along very nice for Schwantz. Jackamus, it's hard to imagine that he wouldn't be checking a lot of these same checks, although he is checking the World of Ruin version of South Figaro, which does have different items.
The big question is whether or not he's going to go into Narsh early enough to be able to capitalize on that egg. He'll almost certainly go into Narsh and loot that room at some point, because Umaro, when you have Umaro, the combo of checks you can do in the World of Ruin just winds up being too good of a value at some point. But Experience Egg really rewards you for getting it early. And so we'll see if he does it here before he starts going to go kill stuff.
And I'm curious too as to how much looting Schwantz wants to do here. With that egg, I am very tempted to get that ball rolling. Excuse me, with the egg and with that rod. And it would feel bad if he had to do it, but I mean, heck, if he had to crack a shield too, Gogo can mimic all of that. So in theory, the first couple of fights here could be solved.
He's also found a lot of cash as he's gone. And so if he can, there's a fixed dice there.
Yeah, so as long as somebody can use that fixed dice, that's an easy in-game weapon.
And even early on, the combo of fixed dice and Experience Egg lets you get some easy damage early on. And importantly, it's damage that isn't stopped by any of the bosses. It is a way to deal with an early Magi Master if that's something that comes up. He's also found 2 hero rings here. One of them in the basement, so Jackamus will get that also.
Hero rings adding a 25% damage increase to both physical and magical attacks. The physical damage won't stack, so you can equip to a third.
Another shield.
Wow! South Figaro has a lot of power there. And Jackamus, he's already getting the ball rolling on these checks. Looks like he has taken off the Moogle Charm and going to get some early levels here.
Did Jacobus go into the basement?
I think he's in South Figaro Cave.
He went into the town before, I thought.
He did. I think he just looted the overworld there. It didn't go into the basement, so he's going to be missing out on that ice shield. I think there were a few other like very high value items that fixed dice.
A fixed dice, and then in the world of balance on the outside, keeping in mind that in South Figaro there are separate items on the exterior portions in World of Balance and World of Ruin, but in the World of Balance, Schwantz also found a Mega Elixir outside. He found another shield, and so Schwantz has a very large loot advantage at this stage.
And not to mention that egg. So Schwantz behind on the checks, but has significantly more player power. That being said, I don't hate what Jacobus is doing here. It is very risky, and in this case, I think Schwantz still has an edge, but getting a head start on these checks, it's not bad.
An important thing for everyone to note is these two are racing head to head tonight, but this is not the only race component for this seed. They're also stacking their times against the other runners in Elixir A for the week. So while beating each other here would be nice, it's not the only thing that matters.
Exactly. Schwantz in the Coliseum. With Umaro, that makes it very easy to just get whatever you can find.
And he's here farming some early items. They're not game-breaking items, but they're also expensive items. You got a very easy Aura Lance there, and so even if he doesn't wind up using that long-term, he can sell it for something like 20,000 gil.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you trade Revivifies for them, so very nice trade up. I do believe that there were Dragoon boots underneath the.
That would explain why he's fighting this Boras here. This is a bit of a pain. He's not. I don't believe he has any levels at this stage, so the fixed dice will slowly chip away at him. But if he's getting Dragoon boots plus Aura Lance, that's an extremely powerful combo.
You would really want to see a Dragon Horn to make the most use out of that, but yeah, jumping with the Lance is a 2x damage multiplier, and Aura Lance is the strongest lance in the game, so yeah, you might as well.
So Jacobus is here going into the South Figaro basement. He's going to loot a few chests here, and then he's going to go to the spot where tentacles are in the base. He's also taking random encounters as he goes here. Schwanzer's resetting out of the Coliseum, interestingly.
And the Boras has a lot of HP, even at base level, so I guess that's one thing that we should talk about is how the level scaling works in this flag set. So, if I'm not mistaken, everything scales off of characters, espers, and dragons. So if you kill a dragon, if you acquire an esper, or if you get a character, it's going to add a +2 levels and +2 multiplier to HP and MP. So as checks get completed, the seed is going to become more and more dangerous.
The important thing to note, and in the race seed, one of the things that is the core for how you play is that the one enemy that does not scale is everything in the final battle. None of the 4 tiers of the final Kefka battle scale up. So you can outlevel that. But if you do additional checks before that, you are increasing the power of all bosses before, and you can get into some pretty powerful enemies for the statue battles.
I have talked earlier about Magimaster. Magimaster may be the deadliest boss in this entire game. Meanwhile, we see a dabbing Yeti over on Jacobus' side in the spaghetti spot.
That's a pretty good find for the first boss, particularly considering he doesn't have that much power. It looks like he's going to use a fire rod here against it, just probably more in the interest of time than anything else, because the Yeti boss is weak to fire here.
Yep, and he can mimic that with Go-Go, which is exactly what he did.
It's well played in order to get that mimic off with Yumaro there potentially gumming up the works.
So Yumaro should be dead here momentarily. Unfortunately, we do see the green cherry come out. Not particularly dangerous, but there is a little bit of dialogue here, just waste time.
Schwantz is going over here and he'll get that same golem that Jackamus picked up earlier.
There's the crack pow on Jackamus' side. So we'll see what he gets after this. Looks like the Raiden Esper. Okay. Pretty decent one to get. It is instant death to the entire screen at a slightly higher hit rate than Odin. And that'll be useful on the Kefka tiers, since there are 2 bosses there that are vulnerable to instant death.
Schwantz is now going down into the Zone Eater belly, so he's going to find Edgar here in just a minute. I think also, I could be wrong, but I believe one of the bridge chests on Jackamus's was a dragon horn. And if that's the case, he might go back and revisit some of that Coliseum work he was doing.
Yeah, I'll have to check that. Jackamus finds a 3rd Esper there on the Figaro throne.
The big question now for Jackamus is whether or not he's going to go down into the ancient castle. The characters they have here, the collection of checks they have is not particularly favorable. Ancient castle is usually a pretty slow check, but in considering the options available, he may just go ahead and do it while he's here.
It's a tough call to make for sure. There is a dragon down there. I'm not 100% sure if Jackamus wants to take that. It seems like his player power is a little bit too low. And he doesn't have any of the items that would otherwise make up the difference. So, for example, if he had another couple rods, if he had super balls, both of those would be phenomenal finds.
The big question, and this is the part I haven't seen to this point, is what magic has he gotten on the Espers he has to this point? He's gotten 3, and so he might have something pretty good. No, he's going for it here. If he's got a level 3 spell or something like that, he might be able to figure out a way to get through it, but he is not particularly strong at this stage.
We'll see if he opts for any of these monsters in a box. There are 2 down here. It's possible that you can run into the Gigantos enemy, which rewards a whole boatload of experience. Or any of the PM Stalkers, which are less experienced, but it'll still give you something in addition to 15 magic power.
Schwantz is taking the long walk out of the Zone Eater belly also. Apparently there's no warp to be found to this stage.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Jackamus is skipping all of the chests, not just the monster in the box chests at this point.
Yeah,
he can
we'll
also
see if
get
he
them on the
comes-
way out.
Yeah, we'll see if he gets them on the way out.
I honestly did not know that bucket item was there, so that's good to know. You always learn new things in this game.
Yeah, that's
And
one of
a
the
dead
great things.
check.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it looks like he is going to skip that dragon there. So, unfortunately, getting an Aura Lance, not exactly what you want.
So what's interesting here is that Jackamus has done all of Edgar's checks. The Go-Go check was the one that gave him Edgar. We know that Yumaro's check is a dead check. and they've all done Gao's father's house. So there's only 5 checks left that could potentially be another character. The Cave on the Veldt in the World of Ruin, which is one of Shadow's checks. Kefker at Narsh, which is the one that is not gated to any character, and then the Floating Continent. And so they're looking. If I wouldn't be surprised to see him go to Cave on the Veldt here. If that's not a character, they're gonna have to do something pretty slow.
Honestly, I'm kind of hoping for a Floating Continent play here. There are 3 fixed fights and then 2 bosses that you have to fight. So the initial part is very long, and then you have to hoof it through the continent, which is also very long. But the upshot is that the first check, which is where you initially land on the continent, and the third check, when you leave, are both guaranteed to be progression items. So there will not be an item, there will be either a character or an Esper.
So Schwantz is back here at the Colosseum, which makes me think that perhaps he found that dragon horn I was talking about.
He really wants those dragoon boots.
If he has a dragon horn and with that lance there, it'd make a lot of sense to go ahead and go for it.
Oh, yeah, no, I definitely don't hate it. But little does he know that he could just go into the ancient castle, and there's a pair of dragoon boots there for him. We did get to see a little peek at the Espers over on Jacquemus' side. I saw Flare, and that is about the only offensive spell that I saw there, so...
Flare's not what you're looking for in Ultros League in particular. It is a very slow animation. It takes about 15 seconds per cast. And so Flare can be useful to get through some of the bosses that resist most elemental spells, but it's not what you want to be looking for primary offense.
Not at all. Ideally, you would want some kind of level 3 spell, so either Bolt, Ice, or Fire 3. You could get away with Meteor as well on some fights, notably Tier 2 of Kefka, where it can do, like if you have a bunch of magic power, it can just do silly amounts of damage.
The interesting one would be for Schwantz in particular, because he's found so many elemental shields, would be Merton.
Merton would be a fantastic pickup here. Haven't seen an Esper with it yet, but boy, when it comes out, if it comes out, it'd be a phenomenal pickup. And meanwhile, that was Celeste just taking a quick nap in the cave on the Veldt.
This definitely reduces the chances there's that floating continent. Celeste has one of the best collections of checks in the game. There's a free check in the South Figaro basement, and then she has 3 checks in the Magic Check Factory.
Yeah, I agree. Ooh. Oh my goddess. Absolutely not what you want to see, and the love token immediately coming out.
This one could be tough. With his lack of loot, his lack of elemental immunities, the love token coming out. It's going to take everything he has to get through this one.
Yeah, Bolt 2 one-shotting Umaro, that Plasma one-shotting Go-Go. Edgar doing great damage with that jump and that Aura Lance.
Well, the other thing here, too, is there'd be a possibility of resetting out of this and maybe some different circumstances. But he knows that if he doesn't kill this goddess here, this may be the only character available to him, and the other options to check on are very slow. So he's got a lot of incentive to get through this fight, whatever it takes.
Yes, indeed. I do think that he'll get through it. It looks like Edgar's doing about 1,700 to 1,800 a pop. And given that he's in the air, it should work out okay.
Goddess at this stage should have about 9,000 HP, so he probably will be able to get through this here. He's going to be spending the rest of the battle keeping his characters on the ground alive.
Yeah, she does give a a tremendous amount of experience. So it is in Jacquemus's best interest to try and keep him alive.
The other thing too is that the Phoenix Down animations and everything related to that give Edgar's ATB his time bar there, time to charge. And one of the powerful things about jump is that jump will always go next if you queue it up. And so he's really just trying to keep Edgar in the air the whole time.
Exactly. I'm thinking that this next jump should kill her. And the Schwantz, meanwhile, going into the Figaro Castle basement. And we'll see if he opts to go into the ancient castle as well. And there we go. All 4 party members alive, taking down the goddess. So good job.
I think what happens here in the next couple of checks on Jacquemus's side will really determine a lot about what happens with this seed. Schwantz got out to a pretty heavy early loot lead. With Celez here, if he can get rolling and gets through Celez's checks with minimal dead checks or finds that 6th character, he's going to get out to a pretty big lead.
Interesting that he chose to ditch Gogo there. Gogo is a much weaker character stats-wise than Umaro, but he does have amazing flexibility with being able to mimic basically everything. Oh, and Schwantz found Super Ball somewhere. And down goes his dabbing Yeti. That was very fast.
Super Balls are in particular, along with all thrown items in this game, are particularly strong with Go-Go because of that mimic potential. And that can even allow an extra boost of power to a weaker party as late into the game as dealing with those statue bosses.
Yeah, absolutely. The power, or part of the power that comes with mimicking Super Balls is that it doesn't actually use an item in the inventory. So in theory, what you could do without like an Imoro in the party is have a character use a Super Ball, and then if nobody else does anything, Gogo can just continually mimic Super Ball throws over and over again. Very, very powerful early game option.
And part of the reason why Jacquemus was less motivated to keep Gogo around is he has not found a lot of those same thrown items that Schwantz has. Yeah, I don't know if he's found any elemental shields. It doesn't look like he's found Super Balls. He's going to South Figaro now, so he's going to start finding some of those items.
I do believe that he'll find a shield out here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, there's that ice shield.
And then if he goes into the basement, he'll find a second one.
Earrings and Atlas armlets there in the world of balance South Figaro, but unfortunately he will not get the discount double check for Edgar there.
So Schwantz is going down into the cave. He has the possibility of killing this dragon, which will be especially strong considering he does have an experience aid. He's checking this monster in the box also.
Just a master pug. This guy is usually way more trouble than he's worth. He drops the greatest dagger, which is, I believe, a pearl elemental dagger. Has a fair amount of offense on it, but I don't believe I've ever seen anybody actually use it other than to sell and get 12,000 bucks out of it.
So there's another Esper for Jacquemus there in the basement, getting Palador. He's starting to get a pretty decent lead here in terms of the number of characters and Espers he has to this point.
Schwantz got a little bit of a late start with starting to do those checks there. He spent a fair amount of time at the Coliseum, so Does have some ground to make up here. And finds the Dirt Dragon.
The dragon does not appear to have led on Quake, so he should be able to get through this pretty quickly. And got an extremely high roll from that first Super Ball.
And the bare minimum roll on the second.
And then another crazy high roll on the third. That's the power of Super Balls, especially with Go-Go. He went down there knowing that he would be able to kill whatever dragon he got there. And he's going to get out to a pretty big experience lead here. He doesn't necessarily have the strongest tools to convert that lead into offense at this stage, but there are a number of things he could find along the way that could really help him out in that regard.
Well, remember that Schwanz has that EXP egg. He's had it this whole time, and Jacquemus, I don't believe, has ever even entered Narsh.
No, and so at a bare minimum, Schwanz has the ability to use egg plus fixed dice. Fixed dice scales very much with levels, and so at a minimum, he's got that. And that also explains why he was checking monsters in the box, because he's looking for the key prize in the monsters in the box is Katana Soul, which drops the Offering Relic, which gives you 4 times fight, particularly with fixed dice. Fixed dice does not get the usual half damage penalty that you would get from most weapons with offering. So he's going to check every monster in the box he can find.
Jacquemus in the Floating Continent. Okay. I think that at this stage, it's kind of an interesting play. It's very long, like I said, but you do get 2 guaranteed progression items out of it, with the possibility of a third at the Atma weapon spot.
It is pretty surprising, though, that he didn't go with Magitech Factory first. Magitech Factory is also 3 checks, and is generally a good bit quicker than Floating Continent is.
I agree. I think at this stage I would have rather seen him do. If you're going to do Magitech Factory, I say you do the entirety of it. In theory, you could warp out after Magitech 2, but just like the first and third checks here on the Floating Continent, the third check in Magitech Factory, where you're finally out, is also guaranteed to be a progression item, so either a character or an Esper.
The other interesting part is he hasn't ever entered Narsh, so he has not peaked Umaro's check. So he actually has a couple of different multi-check options potentially available to him that he chose to forego in order to do this now. Now, if you're going to do Floating Continent, you're better off doing it early. You do have a lot of fixed battles here in this early stage. You get a lot of experience, so it's better to get that ball rolling early on.
Absolutely. At least the encounters up here are pretty decent overall. They give some good experience, and they're not too difficult to deal with. It's just a little bit long.
So we'll see where Schwanz chooses to go here. Looks like he too is going to go to Cave on the Veldt here, and he's going to find Celeste.
This is a pretty big diverging point, because if Schwanz selects not to go to Floating Continent and instead opts for honestly any check at this point would be pretty decent for him. But if he opts to go for Magitech facility, I don't know why that took me so long to get out. It could be a pretty significant route divergence from there.
I know in Schwanz's shoes, I would be at the stage when I go in here and find Celeste, I am trying to get through the rest of this without having to go to Floating Continent. Floating Continent is generally a 10-minute commitment from start to finish. Even if you can get through the bosses pretty quickly, there's just a lot of running around, there's a lot of animations. And so there's a very good chance you're right that we're going to see Schwanz not ever go through these checks that Jacquemus is going through here. Checking another monster in the box here.
There's the Gigantos.
Gigantos might actually be pretty dangerous here.
So the deal with Gigantos is that anytime you hit him with anything, he does 2 physical attacks and then that throat jab there. The upshot to killing him is that he has the highest EXP ratio in the game. So he will probably get north of 10,000 EXP here, which is insane for a single fight.
Jackamus is now going down into the Piranha boss, the Rizzo Pass boss here, and the Imperial Air Force spot. And so this does not necessarily have to last as long as it does in SNES, but you can be stuck waiting here killing these for up to a minute before you get to the main boss.
Yeah, we'll see how lucky he winds up getting here. I believe that was 14,000 experience for Schwantz, so nice pick-me up there. And Edgar, I believe, has that EXP egg, so that's going to get doubled. 28,000 EXP off of one fight. Absolutely insane.
Single jump isn't necessarily what you would usually go to in terms of offense, but he's going to be hitting extremely hard with this Edgar by the time he gets to the late game.
Yeah, no question about that.
You could see Schwantz is stripping all of his equipment off of Celez here, also anticipating doing what Jackamus did, or excuse me, he's stripping all of his equipment off Gogo in anticipation of replacing him with Celez here. So now we'll see what Jackamus gets with the first floating continent check. It's Sabin. It's character number 6 for him. Sabin is another character that has several pretty easy, straightforward checks. Depending on what he finds here over the rest of Floating Continent, Jackamus might be looking at meeting his requirements pretty early on.
So my question to you, Tyrith, is this. If there is a 7th character at the end of Floating Continent, do you attempt to go for a skip?
That's really going to come down to what you find doing the checks you'd want to do anyway. I would think even with Sabin here, the most likely place... I was going to say Magitech Factory, but I realized that I don't believe either of these runners has found the Warp Stone or the Warp Spell to this point. So they don't have the option of doing just the first 2 parts of the Magitech Factory right now. There are some checks that would kind of dictate what would happen from here.
You could, in theory, hoof it out of Magitech 2.
That just seems...
It takes a while. You have to, like, as a matter of fact, I found this out like a couple of weeks ago, where you write up a hook and just walk back out, but that is a significant time loss you get by doing that.
Particularly with Sabin, I would think if there's no warp or anything like that, at this stage, the most likely place to go is probably to start doing some of Sabin's checks. They haven't been to Tizin yet, so there's both the Falling House and the Thief there. Falling House is a pretty quick check, even if it's another character. That might be one where, hey, if there's a character there, yeah, just run through, go ahead and get it, and then see what happens from a skip perspective. Jackamus has not entered Narsh. He hasn't checked on the Yomaro spot yet. And so there are some lines here where he might be investigating it depending on what he gets here. Or it's possible he hits 2 Espers in these next 2 spots and wraps things up pretty quickly. And then primarily is going to be looking for some late game offense.
I just realized I'm doing a very bad job at tracking. Sorry, chat. Jackamus fighting the Guardian up here. Guardian, like a lot of robots, is weak to Bolt. I don't believe that either of our runners have Bolt access, other than Bolt 2. Guardian's a
Guardian
pretty...
is.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Guardian is a boss that's a little bit scarier later in the game when you're at a higher scaling level, like we were talking about earlier, than he is at this stage. He gets some very scary attacks when he's level 30 plus, but at this stage, he's not necessarily the most difficult.
I think that he does have some of the more deadly moves. I believe that he can Atomic Ray here, and that would kind of mess up his party a little bit. But he doesn't have Shrapnel. I don't believe. I don't believe he has like Wave Cannon or anything like that. And all of that's a moot point because he's dead.
Guardian is particularly scary when you're fighting him in a statue boss and you only have 2 characters, because Shrapnel is one of the deadliest late game moves that any of the bosses have. We see
Wow.
Schwantz here. He's going to Floating Continent also.
Okay. So Schwantz basically just following Jackamus this whole race, doing all the same checks. Just a little bit behind. So he's going to pick up his Saban, and he's going to pick up his Starlit Esper, which had Cure and Life 3 on it.
So there are 2 fixed encounters here as you run out of Floating Continent. And then a boss at the Narapa spot at the end. And he's at the stage where he's just smoke bombing out of some of these less valuable random encounters. They're just not worth messing with. This is a pretty potentially dangerous fight.
He does opt to take it. In theory, he could smoke bomb out of this as well, but it looks like he's just going to get through it just fine.
Yeah, he's got a lot of elemental immunities now. He did go find those elemental shields in South Figaro. Let's see what boss he's going to get here. Tentacles. Tentacles is one of the absolute scariest bosses to get first, because their Seize attack does fixed damage, which is extremely scary when you only have a couple hundred of HP. But at this stage, the boss isn't really going to pose a problem for him.
Not at all. I would be very surprised if Jackamus struggles even a little bit here. That being said, Umaro could get grabbed, and if he does, Umaro's probably dead. I believe the ticks are about 60 damage apiece. Yeah, 61 there on Edgar.
What's interesting is, given the option of another character in Saban, he continued to leave Umaro in his party. And he's at the stage where he's kind of making his choices in terms of what his final party is going to look like. Because he may not get any more characters, and he's choosing which characters he's putting experience into. So looks like he might be considering taking Umaro into the final boss.
This wouldn't be the first time that he's done that. Jackamus is always a man of the people. I did see him earlier buy a set of 4 rename cards, so we're going to get some cool names out of these people, probably. And it is an Esper that he is going to get, and that is a Seraphim.
So he's up to 6 Espers now, I believe. And that's... Now he's going to Magitech Factory. He's going to Vector here in the World of Balance. And he might be in position to finish here pretty quickly if he gets 2 Espers off of these first 2 bosses.
Did he pick up a Warp Stone at any point?
I haven't really been able to check. My number one thought is that he's got a Gray Magic Warp at some point. But we'll just have to see. He's also choosing to skip some pretty easy chests here. He's going to pick up the one he goes right next to. But he's feeling pretty confident about his offense, it seems, at this stage.
Olahan down for the Schwantz. He is going to fight some flying fish and then pick up his Sabin. We'll see if he replaces Umaro.
So there's one check here for the first boss at Ifrit and Shiva, and then there will be a second check for the second boss at number, I believe that's number 128. And you can warp out of the Magitech factory at any point before you talk to Sid. Once you talk to Sid, you got to go on the minecart ride. And so my suspicion is at this stage he's going to be exiting after he fights the second boss, but we'll see.
I would be very surprised if he does Magitech 3. Although, if he doesn't have Warp, he might well be tempted.
Got some Ice 2 and Ice Rods here, so Flame Eater is going to probably go down after this. Nice, easy boss there. Besides Goddess, they haven't really run into anything that would cause major headaches at this point. And I'll be curious if he runs into even Tritok. I don't know if he has fire damage, and so there are a couple different bosses that could potentially cause some problems for Jacquemus's offense setup. There's Esper number 7, and we're just moving right along at this stage.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing about not finding the hard bosses early is that you have a much greater chance of finding them late, which is when they are the most deadly.
Magimaster with this sort of situation where it doesn't necessarily have a lot of non-elemental damage. Doomgaze is always scary when you only have 2 characters because he just spams so many Doom attacks. Poltergeist could potentially cause some problems, to speak of the devil.
Yeah. Commentator's curse.
We are now fighting the spiciest of chickens here. Should be okay with 4 characters, though, especially not particularly high scaling yet.
Jacquemus does have Fire 3. I didn't see an Esper with that, so I wonder if that's some natural magic there.
My guess is we missed it on one of the Espers at some point. I don't think he's at a particularly high level at this point, high enough to get something like that.
So Spicy Chicken here has a red jacket for the taking if you can pluck it off of his corpse. Is not weak to ice. Notably, he is actually weak to poison, so if you have a poison rod, they actually have a use.
The elemental immunities are coming in pretty big here, particularly with one character jumping. Umaros gets a variety of relics that make him immune to fire, so his characters are pretty much not going to be taking any damage from a lot of Poltergeist's spells here.
One thing that is
trying a
worth
few
noting.
different things, offense-wise.
Yeah, you see Flare coming out here. In this situation, Flare is actually not a bad spell to use because it pierces that magic defense. And I think Poltergeist has innate shell.
Also just doesn't necessarily have a ton of great options here. So kind of just whatever gets the job done.
Yeah. So while Jacquemus is wrapping up this fight, and while Schwantz is hoofing it through the floating continent, why don't you give our runners a follow? The Schwantz27 and Jacquemus. You can find them on Twitch. They're great players. And hey, if you like what you're seeing so far and you want to get involved in the Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide community, check us out at ff6wc.com. You will have a link to the Discord there. You can roll seeds from there. And we have a link to a fantastic wiki, which has all kinds of information that you probably didn't even know about Final Fantasy VI. So if you're interested, we would love to have you. Come and say hi.
So Jacquemus did get Esper number 8 there, and he did have a Great Magic Warp, so he's possibly about to be at his requirements. So that's a $56,000, 56,000 gil Esper here. He may just sell things. He hasn't really sold much throughout this seed, so he may just sell stuff and buy it here. Also could potentially go to World of Ruin and see if it's cheaper, but it looks like he's just going to go ahead and buy it. There we go. And so now the question is, what else is he going to do to prepare?
I'm not sure what his levels are at this point. He has taken a fair bit of just fights in general, so he may be inclined to just go ahead and dive right into the tower. Personally, I err on the side of safety, and I typically go and fight the Opera House Dragon in the World of Ruin.
See where he's going here. It looks like he might be going to Narsh. Yeah, he's going to go fight the Narsh dragon here. We'll see if he checks out the loot house and gets that experience egg here.
Starting it down for Schwantz. He's going to pick up his 5th Esper.
Jackamus isn't even bothering to check the loot house at this stage, which makes sense. So he's never even going to know that experience egg was there until we talk about it afterwards. But he's up to, his levels looked like they were about level 33 at this stage, so he's doing okay in that regard. He's going to get some more experience off of the dragon here.
Yeah, this should put him up to about level 35. And that should be more than enough to comfortably take on Kefka's Tower.
I will be curious to see whether... There's a lot of variance with the way this seed has gone in terms of how well Kefka's Tower can go. If they get easy bosses, he's probably got enough power with all 4 characters together to beat the end game. But there are definitely some situations that could arise that wall 1 or 2 of these characters individually, because he does not have any super strong kitters in the group.
Taking on the Gold Dragon here. Gold Dragon is vulnerable to Berserk, so if you're having trouble with those very, very powerful lightning spells, Berserk him and then enjoy your easy dragon. Or you just have the elemental protection and the offense and take it down that way.
Also see what he gets here is a drop. Marvel Shoes isn't really what you're looking for. But he just warped straight out of there. And it looks like he's also going to go fight the Opera House Dragon here. That makes sense. He wasn't choosing to do one over the other. He was going in planning to do them both. And this will give him a boost up into the mid to high 30s. Probably... The way a lot of the damage formulas work in Final Fantasy VI, you get a lot of extra damage for those levels once you get north of level 35. And so there's a multiplicative factor in how the level out formulas work when they calculate damage for most things. So this is really going to help him just in terms of raw damage he's going to do. And with Fire of 3, he's going to be able to take this Ice Dragon down pretty quickly.
Yeah, getting a couple of characters frozen there kind of stinks, but fortunately has a base level fire there. It does look like he has complete Merton protection, which is unfortunate because he does not have Merton. So the Ice Dragon will not be long for this world. There it goes.
You could really use a strong item drop here, though, just in terms of speed and safety. He's got to be rooting for an Illumina or a Ragnarok, something that just gives him a boost in one item, and it's an experience egg.
The most trolly EXP egg. That's not true. It's not the most trolly, but it's up there.
It's pretty troll. Just even if he had done that dragon first and then the other dragon, he would have gotten a big boost off of that.
Yes, indeed. So Jackham is heading into the tower at about the 52-minute mark.
If he gets a clean tower, this could be a pretty quick time. He's gotten this done with about the bare minimum amount of offense to this point in terms of getting things done efficiently. And we'll see if that holds up here. If it does, he's going to put up a pretty good time.
Yeah, no doubt. Getting into Kefka's Tower sub 1 hour is it's about where you want to be on this set of flags. Generally, racers at the Elixir tier here will be aiming to complete their seeds in under an hour and a half. And Jackamus looks poised to do exactly that.
Schwantz went and got the Esper from this to Zen Thief, and it looks like he's going to meet his requirements here, getting these first 2 Espers out of the Magitech factory.
So I talked early on about the importance of getting items and how Jackamus made kind of a risky play by opting to loot later rather than sooner, and it seems like I was kind of wrong about that. Jackamus, a pretty solid lead over Schwantz here. It's still anyone's game, but that door is closing for Schwantz. He's going to have to pull something out here. That being said, he does have a pretty tremendous level advantage over Jackamus because of that early EXP egg. But ultimately, that may not matter.
What we've seen over the first couple of seasons of Ultras League, I believe, is that we've seen the metagame shift away from looting as much in the early game in a lot of circumstances. The route Jackamus took, there's a Genji glove. I don't think he's got any use for it. But the route Jackamus took here today really exemplifies that. He looted not very much in the early game. He looted a little bit after that. But he's really gotten through this on the bare minimum amount of chests open.
And once you get into these higher tiers, that's more and more of a thing that you become aware of. It's, when is my offense good enough? You don't really tend to worry so much about defense. You see, like, you'll very often see people go into Final Kefka wearing leather armor, for example, just because they didn't find any armor pieces, and it's not really worth going out of the way to look for them.
Your defensive stats, in particular, besides elemental immunities and things that give you high evasion, only really matter on the first tier. The rest of it, how much physical damage in particular you take, doesn't seem to matter that much. And so as long as, like in this seed, he's got some level 3 spells, as long as he's got some healing and some ways for him to restore MP, he's got enough offense he can probably find his way through the final battle, particularly considering he's got 2 elemental shields he can throw at the last stage that can mitigate a lot of the problems you can get into if you're low offense in terms of ultimate counters and stuff like that. And so, assuming, I would say at this stage, the statue bosses concern me more for Jackamus than the final boss does. There are things that can go wrong with the final boss however you shake it, but there are probably more things that can go wrong with some of these statue bosses than with Final Kefka.
Yeah, absolutely. You're fighting each of these bosses with 2 people apiece. So if you run up against... and there's any number of nasty bosses that can come up. We still haven't seen Doom, which is the last remaining statue boss. As we see Schwantz come up on his spicy chicken. Doom Gaze could be potentially very deadly. And of course, the ever deadly Magimaster.
Celeste can kill Magimaster with Flare. Can't really kill him very quickly if it comes up. But the other parties, I will be very curious to see what bosses these side parties get, because the secondary characters just aren't hitting super hard at this stage.
The unfortunate thing with Magimaster is that, as his name implies, he can cast all kinds of very devastating magic, up to and including Doom. And if Doom connects on Celeste, he is potentially in for a rough time. I say Celeste, or basically any party member here.
It's very difficult if you fall behind on Doom Gaze to catch back up. And in particular, he's got one party that has both players have one party that has Umaro in it. And if your non-Umaro character ever dies, they're dead, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Yep. You better hope that Umaro can clutch it out.
Tunnel Armor is probably about the biggest gimme. There's Leader, there's a couple others that are pretty easy, but Tunnel Armor has probably pretty much never killed anyone in Worlds Collide, and so this is a freebie.
Well, I'll show you.
Now, you can get some crazy flags in this game, and those might be a little bit different, but in this case, I wouldn't anticipate any problems.
No, absolutely not.
Schwantz is fighting Poltergeist over here. I believe after this he is going to pretty much be done with his Kefka's Tower requirements, and we'll see him follow suit. Probably not going to do the dragons, and so he'll catch up a little bit there.
Better make it quick. That's all I can say. Jackham is checking the validation chest and getting a cure ring for his efforts. And here's that weapon.
There's room still for Schwantz to potentially win this race, but Jacobus is going to have to die somewhere. Either on one of these side statues or in the final battle.
So you see Atma Weapon casting Quasar there, and a little earlier on Schwantz's side, you saw Poltergeist casting Fallen One. I don't believe either of those abilities can be cast in the normal game. So what's happening there is a concept in Worlds Collide called ability scaling, where as a monster's level goes up, the chances of that monster using a higher tier ability also go up. So at this point, Atma Weapon could cast, I believe it can cast Grand Train, which is like one of the top tier non-elemental magic spells.
The really scary one is that if you get up to level scaling 40 plus, you can get into situations where Atma Weapon, Atma, those two in particular can cast Ultima, and that's less fun.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fun for me because I like to watch our racers suffer, but our racers probably don't like that very much.
Schwantz is going into Kefka's Tower here.
Coming in at about an hour and 45 seconds.
Still got the possibility of posting a pretty decent time, assuming he goes clean through here. Haven't found any bosses to this point that would be overly scary. And as I say that, here's Leader, who is probably the easiest of all of the bosses.
Leader, if you let him scale high enough, his axe ability, because it's a multiplier on his physical damage, can actually get pretty scary. But that's about all that he can do. And he doesn't have a lot of HP, so he generally folds like a wet napkin.
So they're 3 for 3 on pretty easy bosses to this point. There's still a bunch of relatively easy ones left. There are all 4 Ultros fights are still available. in particular, Big Daddy Luma. There's still some stuff, or it could be something really scary. So, but it's just there's one opportunity left to really wall this here.
To address our question in chat, Poltergeist can use Fallen One. Not normally. In the vanilla game, he will not. However, in the vanilla game, he can cast a spell called Meteo. Meteo is non-elemental AoE damage, and Fallen One can scale upward based on that. So when Poltergeist casts Fallen One, it is basically an upscaled Meteo.
So this is the 4th Ultros fight. So once he does some damage to Ultros, the Chupon will come into the battle here on the left. But this is about the best case scenario you could hope for in terms of statue bosses. None of them really posed any threat here.
Yeah, just an extremely easy set of bosses in Kefka's Tower. So our runners have to be feeling pretty good about this.
This definitely opens up some sub 120 potential. Potentially, if everything goes right on the final battle, maybe something in the 115 range. Maybe more 117 than 115 at this point, but there's some pretty strong potential for a sub 120 for Jackamus at this stage.
There's the
Sneasel in
Sneeze.
the battle here.
So unfortunately, Edgar and Umaro will not get any levels from that. Sneeze will just blow you away, ends the fight. You get nothing, you lose. Good day, sir.
So, as we go into the final battle here, what are some of the big things Jackamus needs to be alert on as he goes into this?
So there's a handful of things that you want to have before you start stepping on the switches. You would like to have some form of silence, so either mute or the Siren Esper. You want some form of instant death for the long arm on tier 1 and the tools on tier 2. And you want some form of calmness protection on tier 3. And we'll talk more about that as Jackamus ascends the tiers here.
And there's some parts of that are more about efficiency. There are some more that are about danger. The Golem Esper in particular is going to be important here because it is the calmness protection for tier 3. Make sure that you can get all of your characters into tier 4. Things like mute and the instant death are more along the lines of would be nice. They make things go more quickly, but they're not necessarily life or death.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The magic portion of tier 2 can be pretty annoying. He does have the capability of bundling your party.
Ouch.
Ooh.
That's one of those things where low defense, he's going to recover from this just fine, but low defense can get you splattered here on tier 1. Some of these parts hit pretty hard.
So he is bringing the Yeti into Final Kefka. Again, truly a man of the people.
The head is weak to fire here, so with fire 3, the head will go down pretty quickly. In general, the short arm is the last piece you leave alive because the other two, if they are the last one to die, do some pretty nasty counters.
Yep. The head will cast Quake if it's the last one alive. And the long arm, that's the arm that is closest to you, the viewer, will cast anywhere between 1 to 3 shockwaves, which can potentially kill a character in one shot.
But he's just zooming right along through this. He's got enough levels now that these Fire 3 spells are hitting pretty hard. Big thing is that he wants to get Edgar back up and healed just so that he doesn't have any issues with Edgar getting killed going into phase 2. Because in this final battle, if you have a character dead at the end of any tier, you lose that character for the rest of the battle. In Worlds Collide in particular, you tend to only have 4 characters that are any good by the end, so you really want to keep your main fighters alive. Schwanz is over here on the ammo weapon and the back of the middle party. So he's got 2 more battles to go before the final boss once he gets through this. Seeing Meteor here from ammo weapon shouldn't be a big deal right at this stage.
No, this is the deadliest boss that they will find here in Kefka's Tower. I mean, aside from the tiers, of course. And there goes tier 1 down for Jackamus, and he is on to tier 2.
So we're probably going to see, I believe they both found Raiden. I actually think they have a completely identical set of completed checks in the seed at this point. And so we'll see Raiden come out here. The middle part in red is weak to instant death.
Stunner coming out here for Celeste. Stunner has a decent chance of setting stop on all targets that it hits. The only one that is vulnerable to it is Hit, which is the big blue man there on the right.
Does not appear, it doesn't look like we're getting the Raiden actually, so.
Looks like we're just gonna do all the damage. So there's 4 parts to this fight. I talked about Hit, that's the big blue guy. He is sitting on Tiger, that's the tiger. Behind Hit, there is a woman in red next to what looks to be some kind of machinery. That's Tools. That's the one that is vulnerable to instant death. And the blonde one in the back pointing his finger at Schwanz, that one's magic, and that one is vulnerable to mute.
I'm actually surprised at how much AoE damage Stunner is doing here. It's more damage than he would be doing using Fire 3 on all enemies by a pretty significant amount.
Yeah, absolutely. The multiplier on Stunner is pretty big. So it basically just winds up being a faster Meteor.
And with the elemental protection they have, Doom Tusk. Doom Tusk on Celeste there could have been extremely bad. Doom Tusk is a move used by Tiger in the bottom right that turns one of your characters into a zombie and is actually probably one of the easiest ways to get killed out of the blue during all of the tiers battles.
Tiger is very dangerous, probably the most dangerous aspect of tier 2, so usually racers will want to get it out of the way as quickly as possible.
One of the dangers of using these AoE attacks is that when Tiger is at low HP, that's when he really starts using moves like the Doom Tusk and the things that can really ruin your day.
Yeah, the AoE damage is good to soften them up, but it can be potentially very dangerous to AoE everything down because of certain combinations of abilities that can happen. So you see Quarter coming out there. That is a spell that Magic casts once he is below 10,000 HP. And Hit can counter, or excuse me, Hit does counter with 10 hits after death, which is exactly what it says on the tin.
Looks like he's probably leaving Hit for last here. So I think we're going to see him heal up here after he's got magic and he's gotten all the other... It looks like Tools is still alive in the middle. But it looks like he's going to probably heal up here at this stage.
And
Don't want...
Sorry, Schwant's on the switches at about the 111.15 mark, so he will begin his ascent.
But you don't want to leave the 10 hits for last if you're on low HP. There's just too many things that can go wrong. and get a character killed while you don't have time to do anything about it before the next tier starts. With the Cure 3, he's just going to kill everything at this point.
And that does go back to what I was saying earlier. If you kill magic and hit both at the same time, it's possible to get a situation where magic casts quarter on your party, and it hits one or more people, and then 10 hits finishes off that person, and then you ascend the tier, and you have to leave your friend behind.
Instead, he's going into tier 3, pretty close enough to full HP, it doesn't really matter. He's largely, or maybe completely immune to Burton from rest, the lower portion. And so he's going to be able to get through the first portion of this fight without any problems.
Yeah, shouldn't have any difficulty taking this out. There's the Merton. So this is a two-part fight. You have Girl up there at the top. She has 10,000 HP, and she absorbs every element. So Jackamus is going to be using non-elemental spells like Stunner to take her out as quickly as possible.
And this is a battle where it's pretty important to keep track of how much damage you've done to that lower portion. He can start using Meteo as a counter once he gets below 10,000 HP, and he will also use Meteo on every turn. And so things can go extremely wrong in a hurry if you get into that phase without expecting it.
And the thing that he does when Rest dies is called Calmness. Calmness hits anywhere from 1 to 2 people. It is an instant death physical attack. So you see him summoning Golem there. That is specifically to protect against that Calmness. So he will not die to it. He just has to be careful not to let his team die to Meteos.
He stole the Atma weapon from a portion here, and there's the first Meteo counter. He's got enough HP that one should be okay. The second one is less good.
Ooh.
So one was a counter, and then Rest took his turn immediately afterwards without giving Jackamus any time to heal. And so now he's going... He attacked there again. Is he just trying to get through tier 4 with just these two characters and his two backups, it looks like?
It's like he's bringing up Edgar. He may very well opt to leave Umaro dead. He can be more of a liability in Final Kefka than a non-berserked character.
He's probably going to eat one more Meteo here. That should be fine. Looks like he's using a Phoenix down here, and then we'll heal up. As long as he's not attacking, he's just eating one Meteo per round. And he's got enough HP to deal with that with the Cure 3s.
But as long as Umaro's Body Slam here will... Okay.
Did not realize that Golem persisted through death. That's good to know.
Yeah, very handy for sure. Jackamus, a little bit of a worry there, but making it through, and is now on to Final Kefka.
That's a situation where his levels and the amount of the raw HP total he has, in combination with Cure 3, allows you to take a route that at lower level would just kill you. Because he could absorb those Meteos, he was able to play that. He was able to survive that. If he hadn't fought those dragons, he dies there with that series of counters.
He did get a little unlucky. That first Meteo hit every party member, and Meteo has reduced accuracy, so you'll see a bunch of misses, usually. But yeah, like you said, levels really coming into play here.
So Kefka's going to use Fallen One, reduce all of the non-jumped party members down to 1 HP. And then it looks like he's going to use a Mega Elixir here to heal that back up.
So this is looking like a very fantastic time for Jackamus here. Probably going to be in about the 118 range.
Yeah, he lost a little bit of time having to deal with those Meteos, but he's still going to probably pretty easily come in under 120, assuming nothing weird happens over the rest of this fight.
Havoc Wing doesn't help. It's the strongest physical move in the game. And doing a casual 6,000 damage to Celeste there.
Got the hyperdrive counter. That means that Kefka's about to go into this. Celeste dying there is actually pretty bad because Celeste isn't alive to use a shield here. He's probably not going to be able to kill Kefka before Goner goes off here.
Yeah, we'll get this attack. Oh, no, we will not get the attack from Umaro.
So Kefka has something in the range of 10 to 15,000 HP left here. Once he's below 10,000 HP, Kefka can use Ultima as a counter. And at this HP level, I will say he was probably fortunate to not get an Ultima counter there. It's only 1 out of 3. But that Ultima, there was some game over risk at that particular point.
There's a move that we could have seen Tier 3 use. This is Trine. I know that it says Train, but the game lies. Sets blind and mute on all your party members. And it doesn't matter. And that is GG for Jackamus at 118.24. Fantastic time. Let's see if we can get him in here for an interview. Meanwhile, Schwantz, hot on his heels, taking care of Tier 2 and is on to Tier 3.
He has all the same tools that Jackamus had here, and is probably even higher level, so hopefully this goes pretty smoothly. He's using Quadra Slice instead of using Stunner, but that's fine here. Just did about 8,000 damage to the head, which has 10,000 HP, and the head is also immune to all, not just immune, it absorbs all elements, so you have to use exclusively non-elemental damage.
We are joined in the booth by Jackamus. Congratulations on your first place finish. I totally agree.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
All right, perfect. Nah, I was on push to talk or some weird crap there. Sorry about that.
No worries. So congratulations. How do you feel about that seed overall? You had a fantastic time. 118.24 is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, it went pretty well. Everything Edgar related was completely unnecessary, so I wasted a bit of time there, but otherwise, I think every other check I found at least had a character or an Esper, and I don't know, the offense wasn't the greatest I've ever seen, but it was more than enough. You get a Boots Ultimate Lance Gauntlet combo, you're feeling good, couple Elemental 3 spells, Umaro is always great, so, you know, wasn't the highest offense ever, but it was enough to get through, obviously.
The irony here, as we saw from the Schwantz, is that in the Narsh loot room that you didn't check, there was an experience egg.
Oh, that would have been very nice to have early on, but my route didn't take me there, so... You know, if I had that egg, I probably could have cut out the dragons I fought just at the last minute there to gain a few levels before going in KT, but no, I think overall it went pretty well.
The big question that Gar and I both have was when, I believe it was right after you got Celeste, you decided to go to the floating continent. What led you to go there versus some of the other options you had with doing more checks right away with Celeste or anything else?
Opera House generally isn't worth it for how long it takes for the single check. Magitech, the character can only be in the very last spot, so if I'm going there looking for 6 character, I'd have to go all the way through. And while you can peek what's at Umaro's spot, you have to do a check on the way there, and the peak is in the opposite world, so it just felt most productive to go to Floating Continent, because I've got 2 spots up there that could be character number 6.
Were your
As it
levels a factor in that decision at all, or were you generally pretty happy with how you were at that point in time?
I was only really worried about my levels until I saw what the boss was at the tentacle spot in the Figaro engine. After that, it's like, I know I've got enough to get through all this stuff.
Yeah, it wound up, I think, being a relatively easy seed overall. I think that the hardest bosses you had were Goddess and Poltergeist, and it looked like you struggled a little bit with Goddess just because you got to her kind of early, excuse me. But
I
otherwise,
didn't
yeah,
really
it seemed...
struggle with Goddess. I had a jumper, so I had, a good way to damage her. It was just a matter of keeping the other characters that really couldn't do a whole lot in the fight back on their feet with Phoenix down so they'd get experience. I wasn't worried about that fight at all. But I gotta say, I do like the improved steel flag that we've got going on here, because most of my best gear I stole from bosses. Like, I got the Minerva off Goddess, red jacket from Pulte, and then like 2 minutes to midnight Atma weapon from tier 3 just to boost Celius' damage a little more.
Yeah, one of the things that I didn't notice was you had Fire 3 on a few characters. Which Esper was that on? I was not able to see at all.
It was on Spratham, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that wound up being a
I
pretty...
think it was Spratham, I'm pretty sure, because I think that's the one that I passed back and forth a couple times to get it on my casters.
Yeah. It is worth noting that you and Schwantz took the exact same route. So minus the some early game shenanigans with the Coliseum. Yeah, like y'all both did the exact same checks.
Yeah, the order was a little different early on, but towards the end, he actually did the same checks you did in the same order.
Oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. I'm guessing Schwantz probably took a little more time to loot and crap at the start, whereas I just kind of saw that I had a character with some chests at their free check start and just kind of rolled with it.
That's pretty much what happened. He went into Narsh. The interesting part is he did find that experience egg, but with the way the route shook out, it doesn't really seem to have made a huge difference. And he did peek the Umaro check, and the check was not a character.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he didn't wind up going up the mountain at all, I don't believe. So whatever it was will be lost to time. But yeah, not a character.
Okay, gotcha.
Into a second Goner phase here. The nice thing about the Goner phase is that he does not counter. But unfortunately, it seems like he does not have any offense left on Shadow at this stage.
It looks like he's just picking up Celeste to survive this Goner.
Yeah, I should... Ah, silly ad. Get out of the way, I want to see what Schwantz is doing. I guess he's on Kefka from the sounds of it then.
That is correct. He is fighting Final Kefka as we speak.
Oh, well that's good. Not too far behind then. Only one character left alive.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, and that's a wipe. Unfortunate. Schwant's going to have to go back up the tiers.
Ruh-roh. So much for being close. That's brutal.
Well, and that's the nature of Worlds Collide and Ultras League in particular sometimes, right? Is that dying on Tier 4 is very possible, and dying on Tier 4 is very bad. And even in your battle, it did look like there was at least one hit where there was the possibility of an ultimate counter that probably would have been lethal. That's just the risk you have to take sometimes.
Oh no, I wasn't worried about that. I had a character in the air that was going to land the finishing hit no matter what.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I knew where his hit points were at. So it's like I hit jump with Edgar. I know that's 5 grand. He's got 6 grand left. So Umaro hits him with whatever. Edgar lands, and that's GG.
You're better at
Yeah,
math than I am, that's for
don't.
sure.
It's the one fight where I find counting the amount of damage you do is very important because there's 3 basically distinct phases of the fight where Kefka uses all these nasty counters, and for like the final enemy, Kefka's not too bad, but his counters are what gets you. So you just kind of have to play around those, and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Big shout outs to Schwantz, by the way, for picking himself right back up and starting the tiers again. I know that wiping on Final Kefka can be very demoralizing.
Yeah, it definitely can. But like, here's the thing, though, right? Like, it's not just me. Like, this is the Ultros group there. So Schwantz has 6 or 7 other people to be concerned with beating as well there. So I mean, I'm done, but I haven't seen what everyone else's times are yet. So Schwantz, as far as they know, second place still on the table here, or better. I mean, I don't even know. Like, I look at 118 and I want to feel like I had the best time this week, and I might be a little upset if I don't. But I don't know. You don't see a whole lot of times under an hour 20 in Ultros, so I'm pretty happy with how I did today.
Definitely a phenomenal race on your part, and for
Yeah,
Schwantz as well.
Considering how little offense you found in particular, that was a pretty impressive run. You got through with pretty much just leaning on a level 3 spell for most of your damage. And those are the seeds that really are more impressive to me, because it's easy to go in, and if you got Genji to Luminas, or quad V knives or whatever, you can
Yeah, all that
stuff.
crazy overpowered stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's fun to have a lot of the other stuff see the light of day too. Like, I mean, Tech 6 was doing a huge amount of damage on Tier 2 as it usually does, so that was fun to break out too.
I love me some Stunner. It is a phenomenal ability, and especially if you use it on a character with just stupid high magic power. Yeah, you clear the game with it easy. No big deal.
Yeah. All right, Cheese Boys, got anything else for me before I get going?
Nah, other than to say thanks again for the race. It was very entertaining, and congratulations again on your win tonight.
Cool, thanks. I'll see you folks later, and everyone who's watching, do not forget, let's go Bruins!
Thank you, Jackamus, and have a good evening.
I don't know if he's talking about Boston Bruins or UCLA Bruins. I don't really approve either way, but that's.
I do believe that he is a Boston Bruins fan.
They beat my Dallas Stars last night, so.
See,
we still have.
I was just gonna say that I know way too many Canadians to not be a hockey fan, but I feel like I should be like a Toronto Maple Leafs fan or something, just out of solidarity.
That's like a poser team to root for in an AHL, ultimately. Also a miserable one. They're one of they haven't won the cup in forever, and they're one of the more miserable fan bases in pro hockey sometimes.
Oh. I wonder if that's how Browns fans feel.
Probably. But try to reel us back in here for a few more minutes. Schwantz is here, going back through Tier 2. It looks like things are going pretty smoothly to this point.
Schwantz's offense is like Jackamus, it's very high here. Maybe a little bit higher just because of that level advantage. Notably, Celeste has that Quadra Slice, the Sword Tech 7, where Jackamus didn't get it. So, that being said, I think in this situation, you want to use Sword Tech 6.
Yeah, Sword Tech 6 was doing about 16,000 damage total when all 4 parts were alive, versus about 10 here for 7. Plus the animation, I think, is a little bit slower.
Yeah, just a bit. Sword Tech 7 for like tier 3 and Final Kefka. Yeah, absolutely.
And we can see notably that Schwantz does have Sabin in here instead of Yumaro. This is what I would do. It's the calmer choice. You just have more control. Don't know if it actually is quicker ultimately.
It's hard to say. I think this is one aspect of Worlds Collide that hasn't been. It hasn't been explored thoroughly, I guess I would say. One of the things that I'm trying to do actually is test the impact of Berserk. If anybody here is familiar with Free Enterprise or Final Fantasy IV in general, you know that the Berserk status is incredibly powerful. Less so here, although it does have a fair number of advantages.
There are some very strong things you can do with Berserk or with Yumaro, but they tend to be more matters of last resort because they can be very powerful from an offense perspective, but they are harder to get back up online if something goes wrong. Like we saw with the Jackamus, if he's leaning on Yumaro in a situation where Yumaro goes down, you're down to 2 characters, or if you have 2 other characters and you only have 1 or 2 characters left and one of those is Yumaro, it is much slower to recover just because you can't. He's not going to be able to stop at heal.
Exactly. And that's ultimately the question. Like, how much is giving up control of a character worth? Because I believe that there is a physical damage increase for Berserk characters.
So here's the 10 hits. This will likely be ending phase, or tier 2 here. But I think you made a very good point earlier. One of the hardest things to do here is when you die on tier 4, it is so painful. It's a 12-minute time loss a lot of the time. To get yourself to go ahead and finish the run, particularly we're on stream here, to have that willingness and ability to just pick yourself up and go through it again. I can definitely appreciate that.
And that just goes to show you why Schwantz is an elixir.
And not just that.
A lowly potion like me would have just forfeited. No big deal.
Well, and Schwantz in particular, he's a huge part of the community. He was a huge part of getting this race on tonight and so many of our shows. And he's really a credit to what this community is about.
100% agreed. Schwantz is a terrific individual. You should give him a follow, by the way. You should also give Jacobus a follow. He is also a tremendous individual.
You can also follow Gar, twitch.tv/IamGar. He streams all the time doing this. So if you want more ASMR voice, you can follow him too.
Ooh, yeah. I can talk into the microphone just like this.
Here's Train, which is another potential counter for Rest here. Definitely, and straight into the Meteo. He's got to get through this phase quick. Particular Sabin with that counter timing down. This has got some sideways potential here. Looks like he might just be leaving Edgar dead here. Yeah, he's just moving on with these 3 characters at this stage. The death timer will, the death sentence will fall off here when he changes tiers.
I think that Schwantz is going to be okay here, but losing your jumper is a little sketchy if you're relying on avoiding damage.
Well, it's along the lines of what Jackamus was talking about. That jumper gives you a way, if you get into that final phase with Kefko, where there's the threat of the ultimate counter, the jumper can be in the air while you do damage with something else. It lets you get in 2 hits instead of just 1 to get over that damage finish line.
Yeah.
That said, he also has Gogo here. Potentially, Gogo doesn't have high magic, but at least Gogo can mimic a shield during the Goner phase. Quadra-Slice is doing big damage here. That's a big difference, like you pointed out, between where Schwantz is and where Jackamus was. Jackamus didn't have Tech 7, and so he was only doing 3,000 damage with Celas instead of 10. The only issue with the Quadra-Slice is that charging a Sword Tech is one of the few things in this game that does not hold ATB. And so you can run into a situation while you're charging, Honor goes off, what have you. I wouldn't be surprised. No, he's going to go ahead and charge here. You got it going quick enough, this should work out.
Yeah, this should be fine. That little message that he throws up where he says the end comes beyond chaos or whatever it is, that is actually his turn, so his ATB resets. So that is a good time to charge Sword Techs.
So Kefka's not going to die here, but he's down below 10,000 HP. He should die to the next Sword Tech 7.
Yes, indeed. We see him charging it up there. So we should get the crack pal from Schwantz here in just a moment.
Yeah, that was a really clean tier 4. It's unfortunate that's not the way it went the first time.
Yeah. But there you have it. The Schwantz 27 taking out the mad clown, the self-made god himself, Kefka. We'll see if we can get him in here for an interview. Hey, Schwantz.
Hello. Hey.
Congratulations on your finish.
Yeah, that was a finish. The very beginning of the seed and the very end of the seed went very bad. Otherwise, I thought I did pretty well. Let's just forget about the 5 minutes I wasted in the Coliseum and the 11, 12, 13 minutes that I did from screwing up by doing Sword Tech 6 instead of Sword Tech 5 by mistake. And yeah, that was fun.
How do you feel getting that EXP egg right at the start of the seed?
Yeah, well, I knew that I wanted to put the experience egg probably on Shadow because he was going to be the one that was going to stay in the party the longest. I wanted to give it to whoever is going to use the fixed dice because fixed dice is based off of your level. That's the damage formula. But I didn't want to have Umaro in the entire time, and he was the only one that could use the fixed dice. So that didn't work out for me. And the Aura Lance and Dragoon boots I tried to get in the Coliseum were in Ancient Castle all along. So yeah, that was a giant waste of time.
Yeah, unfortunately, those fixed dice didn't shake out for you. It is worth noting that Jackamus wound up using Umaro in his final party, but I think
that's
is the thing
Jack.
that yeah, that's just what he does.
Yep, for sure.
And he also said
understand
"Go
that.
Bruins."
Yeah, that's also what he does. I could say "Boo Jack" back to him, especially because he won. but yeah, knowing that Jack he was in the Mega Elixir League last season, knowing that he's a much better racer than I am, I tried to do something a little different. So that's why when I saw Umaro, I said, all right, I'm not selling anything I pick up in my inventory. I'm going to go to the Coliseum. And I'm going to find something that is going to make me win this seed. And that would have worked had I not stumbled against the second enemy twice in a row and forgotten to save both times. And we didn't find it, a couple checks later in the Ancient Castle. It's also why I went to World of Ruin IKEA and found Super Balls, which is great. I think that's what made up most of my time, was just using Super Balls to cruise through the first 20 or so levels of the game. The problem is I didn't really know what to do with my fourth character, right? In retrospect, I should have kept Gogo in my party with Sortek and Celeste, but you make routing decisions on the fly, and that's you got to just pick a direction and stick to it. If you are indecisive, that'll cost you more time usually. So, and then at the very end, when we were fighting Spicy Chicken, I'm like, wow, I don't have stop, and I forgot that Stunner, Sortek 6, does do stop until about halfway through the fight. So that would have sped that fight up for sure.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Just a smidge. I did get to pull off Demi Strats in the final battle, which is pretty nice to see.
I saw that. I love it.
When you don't have instant death, that'll do a lot of damage.
So I think
Thanks, Billy
actually,
Lance.
Both you and Jacobus had Raiden. Did y'all not have it equipped for the final battle, or?
I used it. I was saving it for tier 2 because I didn't have mute either. So I figured I could deal with tier 1 because it's not as annoying. Tier 2, especially if you don't have mute for magic, can be a terrible slog. So that's why I decided to use it on tools in tier 2 instead.
Yeah,
but yeah, sense. Yeah, I that's also what happens sometimes in the final battle when you don't have all of the things, to make life easy. We had one source of instant death. We had no mute. Thankfully, we found calmness protection pretty much right away in the beginning of the seed, so that was nice. But yeah, I felt good about my time, even losing the 5 minutes. Had I not wiped, the first time to Kefka, and had I known that he was so low on HP, I don't normally count HP, but when he casts Meteor, that means he's under 10,000 HP. Had I known he'd be so low, then I wouldn't have played it safe with Goner, with bringing back another person to split the damage with me. I would have just went for it, but hey, that's what happens when you don't count. Count your damage, folks.
Honestly, that's something that I'm pretty bad at myself. I don't do it consistently for tier 3. I never do it for Final Kefka. I just jam on the A button and then hope I win.
Yeah, it's one of those, go until you hit stop sort of things. And yeah, I made, those tiny little mistakes definitely cost me the wipe in tier 4. Because if you use Sword Tech 5, you heal Celeste up, and she doesn't get killed by that Goner. So I have 2 party members alive instead of 1. And I don't have to do this dance of, is Kefka going to kill me now? So
it's always sketchy because you never know if he's going to do something nice like Revenger, or if he's just going to double Havoc Wing and, mess your day up. Yeah.
That would be the Nuff Jigglypuff if you get double Havoc Wings. So, but yeah, it was a very odd seed for sure with the characters that we got. I don't know what Jack did for offense, but I know he's a fan of the Man-Eater, so I was using that with Shadow for a little bit, at least to get non-magical damage, but I didn't run into a lot of stuff other than the Aura Lance and the Sword Tech. Was there?
It's pretty much Fire 3 and Stunner.
Yeah.
And then he stole the Atmo weapon off.
The swag tactics. I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he didn't have the egg. He never went into Narsh, and his Celeste didn't have Sword Tech 7.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he did get an egg at the very end. He got one from the Opera House Dragon. So
yeah. Well,
a little
not that useful at the end of the seed for sure. I know also Jack likes to just run at things, so I figured, if we have Gogo and Edgar, he's going to go grab the throne. He's going to go do Zone Eater first. Let me loot and do
That's
the
what he
Coliseum
did.
first.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's exactly what he did.
So I know how Jack races, so I figured let's do something a little different from him and maybe get a leg up. And had I not screwed up the Coliseum play and had it not been readily available in the seed, I think that would have been really helpful, especially in this seed where it was Fire 3 Sword Tech, and that's pretty much it.
Honestly, I thought you had the advantage, and I said as much when the seed started, because Jacobus wasn't looting, and I wasn't sure if he was going to at any point. And you had checked, you had checked the entirety of South Figaro, and you had found like 3 elemental shields.
Yeah, there was some good stuff. Tier 2 spells are not great, as you saw in the final fight. It took a while. I also probably should have bought more earrings, too. That definitely would have helped with damage, right? But I was saving... I didn't want to sell anything, because I wanted to go to the Coliseum and look at all of the junk that I picked up and see if I could turn it... one man's trash is another person's treasure, and that was my mantra. It just didn't work out.
Yeah. I was really hoping it would, too. It's not often that we get to see the Coliseum, even if we have an Umaro start.
Yep.
So,
yep. There was decent stuff in there. There was a Pearl Lance and Aura Lance. I goofed up. That's it. Because when Umaro does his Yeti Slam move, it takes the battle power of the weapon that you have. And Fixed Ice's battle power is 1. So that's why his slams were not doing anything. And I'm like, damn it, I forgot about this. So, well, anyways, thank you guys for doing commentary and for doing tracking. Thanks, Jack, for agreeing to race me tonight. Thank you as well to SpeedGaming for allowing us our weekly slot. And ff6wc.com. Hope to see you guys and girls out there again, and I'll catch you later. Unless you have something else for me. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the race. It was very entertaining. And thanks for putting this all together. And that's all I've got. Tyler, you got anything?
No, thank you everyone for watching the run. Like we've mentioned, you can go to www.ff6wc.com if you want to get on this. You'll find a link to the Discord there. Lots of super friendly people to help you learn about this, how to get going. And so if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to anyone on there and we'll help you out.
And I do want to echo Schwann's thanks to SpeedGaming for hosting us. It is always a pleasure. Until next time, I've been Gar.
I've been Tirith.
And I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Take care.